Hey everybody, welcome back to DeHaven Family Farm. Today we're going to talk about cleaning up rocks in your large vegetable garden or small field. These techniques we're going to discuss today aren't terribly practical for acreages maybe over 5 or 6 acres. I mean, depending on how much time you have, but you know, I wouldn't be going and trying to do 50 or 100 acres this way. This is a little bit more for smaller acreage. So we're going to talk about some different equipment that you could use and some different techniques. So behind me we have some equipment. We're going to take a look at that and we'll show you the field here. This is where our pumpkins are going to be planted, some of them anyway, but we got to get it cleaned up before we can put the lime down and do our final rototilling and get ready to lay the plastic. So it's a little windy out here. I apologize if we have some wind noise. Also, the picture quality should be okay, but I am on my older GoPro. It's a Hero Plus. It has been a fantastic camera, very, very reliable, no complaints whatsoever. The other camera that I use is the Hero 8, and that camera tends to be kind of finicky. So today we're going to be using this one. So if you notice any difference in the picture quality, that's why. So let's get into today's video. So let's look at some of the conditions here that we're dealing with. Here's this field's pretty stony. There are just stones everywhere here, as you can see. So this is what we're trying to clean up. Let's take a look at the equipment we're going to use and some of the techniques. So the first thing we have here is our L220 skid loader, and this is a Vernig rock bucket. We'll take a closer look here. You can kind of see what the end of the bucket looks like and what the middle part of the bucket looks like. I bought this bucket a few years ago specifically for picking rocks, and it works pretty well. There is one downfall with the bucket. The spacing here is a little bit wider than what I'd like it to be, and I've actually thought about building a little bit of a mesh to go on top. Maybe that would be removable. There is a notch right here which kind of helps things from sliding back out of the bucket, but I could put a mesh right in this area and not worry about the rocks coming and hitting it. So that's something I've thought of, and the reason that I've thought about doing that is because you can have a nice big rock like this, and if it gets turned sideways, it'll drop right through the bucket like that. So when you look at this and you say, well, geez, that's a pretty big rock. Well, if it lands like that, you're golden. But if it happens to tip funny and fall in, that's the only downfall with this bucket. So depending on the size of the rocks that you want to do, that you want to clean up, this rock bucket may not be the exact choice for you. If you're looking to just do some bigger rocks, it'll be fine. And not to say that every single time you have a rock like this it falls through, but that is one of the downfalls with a bucket like this. It is fairly quick, and being that the spacing is pretty wide, it really doesn't hold a lot of dirt unless the soil is really wet or damp. So this is an 84-inch wide. I don't know if I said that earlier. So we're going to be taking some footage and showing you that in action. The other thing we have here is our Kubota M4. And we're going to look at, some people call them rock rakes, some people call them landscape rakes, whatever you want to call it. We have a 7-footer on the back here, and this has tines that are spaced, but the tines are spaced much closer together than the way that the rock bucket is built. So this will grab smaller rocks and hang on to them better, but it will also grab more dirt and pull it with you. So again, it depends on exactly what you're trying to accomplish. This has the gauge wheels on the back, so if you were working in a fairly smooth area that just had rocks up on the surface, you could set those gauge wheels so that the tines don't actually dig into the ground at all. They just sort of float across the top. So it's a very versatile piece of equipment. It also tilts and turns. You can see this pin here and all the multiple holes here. You can spin it right around and push backwards. There's all kinds of things you can do with this. Obviously you can see the paint's kind of chipping off. I've had this thing for, I don't know, probably 10 years. It's held up very well. I've used it a lot. One of the advantages to this is we can take it and we can angle it. So if you have a long area that you're going to do, say if you were going to work this area top to bottom here, well, that is a large area to try and pull all the rocks or debris at one time. So what you can do is you can take this and you can tilt it, and we're going to do this, I'll show you today, and we're going to angle this, and we're basically going to make a windrow of material, and then we can go through with the bucket after and we can scoop up just that windrow of material, and instead of trying to scoop up everything. So we can make those windrows and it'll make it faster to clean up. So this is the equipment we're going to be working with today. I'm going to show you, like I said, some different techniques and things. And if you have a project that you're going to be doing on your property in the future, you can decide which one of these works best for you. I would say that the rock rake and that rock bucket are about the same price if you buy a quality rake. If you buy a cheaper one, then you could probably get the rake cheaper than you can get that bucket for. But buying a quality one with the gauge wheels and the adjustments and everything, the prices are going to be very similar. So, and the bucket is quick attach, so it could go on any quick attach device. Like I could put it on the front of the tractor if you wanted to. So it's not limited to just the skid steer. So I think that's enough talk, just trying to give you guys some information. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first technique we're going to start with is basically a fairly straight pull, just from the top to the bottom. Down here in that hole is where we can put all of our debris that we get out of the field. And if we need any rocks or fill for someplace on the property, we'll just come over there and get it. So what we're going to do is we'll just start, because we're so close to that area, we're basically just going to pull down, come back up the hill, and just keep pulling down until we start to get to the point where we're too far away and it's not practical to do that. So what I'm going to do to get this started is I am going to angle this just a little bit so that as we make our passes, we hopefully won't be leaving any trails behind. Now we don't want to make a windrow out of it, so we just want to turn it just a little bit there. Put our pin back in place, and that will help just to kind of keep the debris coming to one side. So so I started making a couple quick passes here, and I decided I wanted to make an adjustment. So on your top link here, we're going to extend this out a little bit, and what that is going to do is it's going to make the tines on the rake a little bit more aggressive. It's going to tip them forward more. We may have to adjust it again, we'll see, but we'll start with that. So what that does on the side here, it tips these forward, so it's going to dig in more. If you don't want it digging in so more, then you'd want to tip it so your teeth go backwards a little bit. I mean, you don't want them backwards, but you could put them more vertical. So that top link will give you an adjustment as to your aggressiveness. see the difference between what hasn't been done and what has been done. If you saw in the footage, there's a couple times that I was midway through a pass and I sort of would stop and back up and then go forward again. That would be because maybe a rock popped up and I wanted to grab it quick. I also, if there was a lot of rocks, I overlap my passes a little bit. But basically, this is what you're looking for. You can still see that there's a lot of little rocks left, and I would caution you not to keep going over it with the rake when you get to this point. If you're trying to make like a lawn per se, you know, you just want to hand pick the last few that are left. For a garden, a few rocks isn't going to hurt anything. For this pumpkin field, a few rocks isn't going to hurt anything. But if you can, if your field has a lot of rock in it like this one does, if you continually go over it and go over it and go over it, all that's going to happen is those tines are just going to keep digging the rocks up out of the ground. So the idea is you want to pull the ones that are on the top and try and leave the ones that are in the ground in there. But if you just keep going over it and over and over it, you're constantly going to be digging them up. So you want to get to a point where you're satisfied with it, maybe a little extra finish work after. You could always come through if you wanted now, if you really wanted this nice, and set the gauge wheels so they didn't dig in the ground, so that they just skim the surface, and you could pull those last few. So just be careful how you have it adjusted, and think about what the end result is that you're looking for. And you can see here's the debris piles. There's a lot of stone in here, but there's a little sod and dirt. As we talked about in the beginning of the video, with those tines being close together, it is going to grab some of that material. That's okay with me. It's helping to smooth things out. But again, the more you go over it, the more you're going to pull. So I'm going to keep working this here to a certain point, and then we might do some windrows, and we're also going to grab the skid steer, and when we get down the other end, we're going to start using that, and I'll show you the difference there. I was taking all the material down, and we made basically a windrow of spoiled material, just the rocks and the topsoil and whatever else is there. So what you could do, if you did not have a place to put it, like I said, down there, I'm gonna take this and push it all in the low spot. But if you had to, you could either come in here with the machine and scoop all this up and carry it away, or, you know, if you had a dump truck or something, you could park the truck here and load it in there. So it would make it pretty easy and quick to have one single windrow. So depending on your situation, you may want to windrow it, or, you know, maybe you might be able to just drag it someplace. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go grab that skid steer over there, and we're going to start making some passes here right next to the passes that we made with the rock rake, and we'll be able to kind of compare them. I am also going to push that out of the way before my pile gets too long. Since I am pushing it to one location, I don't want it to get too awful long and not be able to actually push it and have to scoop and carry. So let's get started. Okay, so we're trying to make some passes here with this rock bucket, but the ground's a little bit too damp. And there's a lot of sod right here in this spot, and the sod keeps plugging up the bucket. The idea would be to sort of move forward and sift the dirt through and keep the rocks, but the sod is keeping the rocks from getting into the bucket, and it's just plugging it up, so we're not really getting a lot of rocks. that wraps up today's video. I hope you enjoyed and maybe learned something a little bit, the differences between what the rock rake will do and what the rock bucket will do. They both definitely have their place. This video was not really to compare them side by side, but just to show you what each of them is capable of, and if you're considering purchasing one, you can make a decision on what is best going to suit your needs. Maybe you don't need the rock rake, maybe you don't need the rock bucket, you need one or the other. But I hope it was informative so that you can make a decision, again, if you're looking to purchase something. So any questions, comments, leave them down below. I appreciate that. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the thumbs up, please. That bell icon, if you click that, it'll notify you when we have some more great upcoming footage videos for you guys. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see y'all on the next video.